Holy Ghost Batman by Amaderon. Chapter 23. As the World Turns. Wayne Manor, afternoon. The next evening found Steph and the kids at the Manor's indoor pool, because of course it had one, and of course Gotham decided to open up with an unforeseen thunderstorm when they had planned some outdoor fun. Stephanie hadn't meant to notice. She'd been lounging on one of the deck chairs by the Manor's indoor pool, pretending to read while the kids splashed around. The echoes of Danny's laughing trash talk bounced off the tile, Danny's low chuckle following whenever she scored a point in whatever game they'd invented. Sam was refereeing from the shallow end, Jazz floating lazily and making commentary like a sports announcer who decided to narrate her own life. It was just a normal afternoon. Then Danny had pushed himself up out of the pool to grab a towel, and Steph's eyes had caught on the water running down his right arm. The fluorescent light caught something strange that might have been invisible in the natural light. A branching network of pale lightning bolt shapes, snaking up his right forearm, up to the back of his triceps, twisted from the back of his shoulders, down his back, and vanished under the line of his swim trunks. A Lightenberg figure, not the faint, blurry kind you sometimes saw from a small electrical burn. This was deep and deliberate, like a map carved into him with white lines. He didn't notice her staring. Then he threw a pool noodle at him, and he laughed, catching it with his other hand before diving back in. Steph focused her gaze back on her book, though she hadn't taken in a word of it in the last 5 minutes. She remembered Danny mentioning an accident that left him with a heart condition. They couldn't find his medical files. She'd seen burns before, chemical, electrical, even arcane, but she'd never seen one that looked like that. Lightenberg figures usually fade. If she had to guess, that was when his metagene awakened, and his nightmare began. She didn't say anything then, but the thought stayed with her all afternoon. Steph tried to turn back to her book, but the image stayed fixated in her mind. Danny's impossible DNA matched to him. The way the two of them sometimes spoke in half sentences, as though finishing thoughts they didn't want to explain. She didn't need to hear Tim or Jason whispering in the cave for her to see the shape of it. Danny wasn't just his daughter, or his sister in spirit. She was a clone. And Danny, she didn't want to think about the possibility Jason had mentioned to Tim privately, that maybe he wasn't the original either. But the scar gave her an odd hope that he was. The manor was quieter after dinner. Most of the family had scattered, leaving only Tim, Steph, Danny, and Jazz gathered in one of the smaller sitting rooms. Sam had followed Barbara to browse some of the more occult books in the manor library. Danny had claimed one of the oversized armchairs, knees tucked under her, wearing an oversized Wayne hoodie, and clutching a mug of hot chocolate. Danny sat on the couch beside Jazz, his hair still damp from the pool, a cautious set in his shoulders. Steph had been the one to bring it up, though she'd glanced at Tim first for backup. "We've been thinking," she began, "about Danny's living situation." Danny's eyes narrowed slightly, like she wasn't sure if this was about to turn into a lecture. Steph was the one to start. "We've been talking about Danny's situation," she said carefully, "and we've got an idea we'd like to run by you and your mom." Danny's eyes narrowed slightly. "What kind of idea?" Tim took over smoothly. "Steph and I were talking earlier. Right now you're staying with the Fentons, but given certain factors, it might be safer for her to spend some time here with us." Jazz's brow furrowed. "Because of CPS?" Tim nodded. "CPS, and any other agency that might decide to take an interest in her. The Fentons have a lot going on for them, but they live over an active lab. That's not going to stop certain people from finding excuses to interfere." Danny's jaw tightened. "They wouldn't." They could, Steph interrupted gently. And they've done it to other families before. Here, we can insulate her a little better. Danny looked between them, trying to read their faces. So what? You're offering to adopt me? Steph smiled faintly. Eventually, maybe. But right now, we're talking about guardianship. It would give us the legal authority to say no to people who try to move you without a real reason. It would also mean Danny can see you whenever he wants. Tim leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Guardianship, at least for the near future. You'd still be her family. But she'd live here. The idea is to make it harder for CPS or any other agency to interfere. The Fentons have dealt with that before, right? Jazz's lips pressed into a thin line. More than once. Sometimes over nothing, sometimes because people think living over a lap isn't safe. I can't really say they're wrong. Then he shifted. What about when I'm in Amity Park? It's not like I'm moving here full time. That's the other part, Tim said. We'd want to work out a schedule for regular visits, and he glanced at Jazz. There's another thing we want to discuss, Steph said. We'd want you to visit often, and we'd encourage you to have her visit you there too. But here, we can keep certain eyes off her. Plus, it makes a clear record of your involvement if you two want to make paternity official later. Jazz shifted slightly. There's also another thing. When Mr. Lance suggested you seek a psychologist, Danny, he was talking about helping you process finding out you were adopted. I think that still stands. Danny made a face, clearly not appreciating her bringing up his being uncomfortable about his adoption. I'm fine. No, you're not, Jazz said gently, and Danny could benefit from counseling too. Not because she is in the same situation as you, but because you've both been through a lot in a short time. It wouldn't hurt to have someone to talk to. Danny opened her mouth, closed it, and muttered, maybe. Tim set his phone on the coffee table, put it on speaker, and dialed. Maddie Fenton answered after the second ring. Hello? Hi, Miss Fenton. This is Tim Drake. Danny and Jasmine explained they'd be staying with me for the spring break, correct? He said. Stephanie is here too, and we'll have got Danny and Jazz with us. All right, what's going on? Tim explained the guardianship proposal, how it would shield Danny from bureaucratic harassment, how Danny would still be a consistent part of her life, how they could ensure visits both ways. Maddie listened, quietly, only interrupting once. I won't pretend I don't see the sense in this. We'll have dealt with CPS before, and while we'll have managed, it's always hanging over our heads. If this makes her harder to target, I'm in favor. If Danny is okay with it. Danny glanced around at everyone. I'm okay with it. As long as I can still see Danny a lot. That's the plan, Steph said warmly. Maddie's voice softened. Good. I want her safe, but I also want her to feel like she is still part of both families. And Danny, her tone shifted, you will still be with us until you turn 18, young man. This isn't an excuse to disappear on us. Danny crackled a faint smile. Wouldn't dream of it. All right, Maddie said finally. It sounds like we have a plan. I will talk to Jack and make sure everyone here is ready for it. You work on the paperwork there, and Danny, her tone softened. Remember, sweetie, this doesn't mean you're leaving us either. It just means you're getting more people in your corner. Got it, Danny said quietly. Then Steph reached over and squeezed Danny's hand. We are going to take care of you, both of you. That's not up for debate. Danny gave a small, grateful nod. Thanks. Jazz leaned forward. There's still the counseling issue. Mr. Lancer thought Danny could use a psychologist to help with the whole adoption thing. I still think that's a good idea. And Danny, I think it might help her too. Maddie hummed on the other end. If you can find someone trustworthy, I'm on board, but it should be their choice. Danny groaned. Do we have to decide right now? No, Maddie said firmly. But think about it. You've both had a lot thrown at you, and you don't have to carry it alone. They ironed out the basics. Paperwork Tim and Steph would handle, a flexible visitation schedule, and Danny's room at the manor. Many agreed to start prepping Jack and to frame the change as extra safety rather than removal. They said their good nights and Tim ended the call. When the call ended, the room was quiet for a moment. Steph leaned forward, looking at Danny. We take care of our own here. That means you. That means Danny. You're not going to have to fight these battles alone anymore. Danny nodded slowly. Thanks. Danny met Steph's eyes, and there was something there, gratitude, but also the weight of someone used to doing all the protecting himself. Steph didn't say it out loud, but she thought of that scar again, the branching white lines down his arm. She didn't know the whole story, but she didn't need to. Whatever had been done to him, whatever had been done to Danny, none of it had been their choice. And if she had anything to say about it, no one would get the chance to hurt them like that again. Hey Danny, want to spend the night with me tonight? Before I go back to Amity, I mean? The offer kind of surprised the group when Sam found Danny getting ready for bed in Danny's room. The words drew a surprised glance from Danny, who had been in the bathroom while Danny changed, poking his head out at Sam's voice. And even Danny paused in the middle of tucking her pajama top into place. The girl blinked, then darted her eyes to her father. His only answer was a small, soft smile and a nod. They nodded with a smile, seeing how she seemed excited at the prospect. Go ahead, he encouraged. That was all it took. Danny lit up, grabbing her pillow and a few small things before bolting after Sam, happily with the same kind of energy she usually saved for flying through the skies. As Danny and Sam exchanged smiles. A few minutes later, Sam sat cross-legged on her bed, her hairbrush working gently through Danny's hair as the younger girl sat perched on her vanity stool. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet only late evenings could bring, and the soft rasp of bristles against hair filled the stillness. The little girl leaned into the contact contently, her small shoulders relaxing, a faint smile on her lips. Then Sam broke the silence. So, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard what you said to Jazz on the way to the bathroom the other day. This caused Danny to freeze up, her little body tensing. The words hung in the air, brittle, until Sam pulled her into a hug, tugging her back against her chest until the girl relaxed. Don't worry. I'm happy you feel that way, and I appreciate how mature you are being about it. Then he looked over her shoulder, eyes uncertain. You don't mind that I'm not ready to call you Mom? Sam chuckled and gave the little girl a kiss on the cheek. Oh, of course not. I can't hold how you feel against you. This whole situation has got to be super weird for you. I didn't hurt your feelings, did I? Sam chuckled. No, you're being smart and cautious. I wish your dad were that way more often. That earned her a giggle, light and genuine, and Sam's heart warmed as Danny finally relaxed into the hug. When Sam started brushing again, Danny leaned into the strokes, like a cat into a sunbeam. I will tell you now, I have no intention of leaving your dad. I know that's not so comforting right now, but that man isn't going to get away from me now. A golden retriever, himbo, with a cute daughter? I'm worried I will have to fight for the other girls who see that single dad energy. It was a little out of her depth, but Danny saw Sam grinning in the mirror and grinned too. She focused instead on the feeling of Sam's hands and the brush massaging her hair. We will have time to adjust our situation. We still have another school year. Then it will be a while before Danny gets full custody, and who knows when we will make things official. She blushed a bit at the last part. It seemed kind of teenage wishful thinking to mention marriage, but it was what Danny needed to hear now, like an adult comforting a child rather than a heart-to-heart between two girls. With you and Jazz here, Danny and I will probably move to Gotham until he gets full custody, so we will have time to get used to being around each other when you're comfortable, when you're ready. I'd be happy to be your mom. Danny looked down, and as Sam kept brushing through her hair, Danny's eyes welled up with tears. Turning around quickly, she hugged Sam fiercely. Sam was surprised at first, but melted into the hug. It was a weird feeling after a moment. She had met young cousins at family reunions, and kids usually ran a lot hotter than adults because of their higher metabolism. But Danny was colder than her, and she could really feel that Danny was drawing heat from her, looking for comfort. Sam let Danny cling as long as she needed. The girl's shoulder trembled, but the sobs never came, just the deep, steadying breaths of someone trying very hard not to fall apart. When Danny finally loosened her grip, Sam kissed the top of her head and gave her hair one last affectionate brush with her fingers. "All right, come on," Sam said gently, tapping Danny's side. "Bedtime." Danny pouted, but obeyed, crawling onto Sam's bed, setting the small bundle of things she'd grabbed from Danny's room beside the bed. She kicked her socks off and burrowed under the comforter, her oversized t-shirt bunching around her knees. Sam moved around the room and practiced silence, putting the brush back on the vanity, moving the stool back, dimming the lamp on her nightstand, tugging the curtains close against the Gotham skyline outside. She wasn't usually the tuck someone in type, but when she turned back and saw Danny's small form curled beneath her covers, it felt natural to sit down and pull the blanket snug. "Comfy?" she asked. Danny nodded, her hair spilling across the pillow like black silk streaked with blue sheen. "Yeah," she hesitated before adding, in a softer voice, "thanks for not making it weird or pushing me." Sam brushed a stray lock of hair off Danny's forehead. "You're a kid. You're allowed to figure things out at your own pace. I'm not here to rush you." That answer must have been enough because Danny smiled sleepily and yawned. Her small hand darted out from under the blankets and caught Sam's wrist. "Don't go yet." Sam's heart squeezed. "Not yet. I'm here to stay." She kicked off her socks and stretched out on top of the covers beside Danny, careful not to crowd her, but close enough that the girl could feel her presence. For a while, they just lay there in the dim light, the only sound, the muted hum of the city beyond the window. Sam's mind wandered as she watched Danny drift towards sleep. It struck her how strange life had become. A year ago, she never would have imagined herself brushing the hair of Danny's clone-turned-daughter, promising someday to be her mother. She wasn't sure if she was ready for the weight of it, but looking at Danny's small hand, still clutching her wrist, Sam realized she wanted to be ready. Danny had his way of stumbling into responsibility, powers, heroics, kingdoms, family, and somehow rising to the occasion. Maybe she could learn from him. Maybe she already had. "You really are your dad's kid," Sam whispered with a soft smile, clinging on to people whether they're ready or not. Danny, half asleep, mumbled something that sounded suspiciously like, "You don't mind," before sighing and nestling closer. Sam brushed another kiss into the girl's hair and whispered, "Not at all, Danny, not at all." Minutes stretched. Eventually Danny's breathing evened out. The little girl completely asleep, still faintly cool to the touch, still drawing warmth like a child, curling against a fireplace. Sam stayed awake longer, staring at the ceiling, letting the moment sink in. She thought about Danny, his awkward dad smile, his terrible jokes, the way he was learning just as clumsily as Danny how to be a family. She thought about Jazz already building the scaffolding of stability for them, and she thought about herself lying here in a Gotham bedroom with a child who wasn't hers but might be someday, and how strangely right it felt. Finally, Sam exhaled, shifted onto her side, and let her own eyes drift close. For tonight at least, then he was safe. Then he could rest easy, and Sam, despite all her sharp edges, felt like she belonged exactly where she was. Danny sprawled across the wide mattress after Danny and Sam left, kind of annoyed by the interruption of their nightly routine. But it was Sam, and Danny had been really happy for the offer. Thinking about it, he should get some work done before he forgets. Phone glowing faintly in his hands, while the rest of the house had settled into its heavy, dignified silence. He decided to message Tucker, because he had turned his dimension-crossing phones into a whole business, one of several involving the trade of goods and services from the ghost zone. He was even their ISP. Several younger ghosts, or niche ghosts, had embraced it. Ghostwriter was obsessed with fanfiction now. Sydney was loving online schooling. Amber was even on Spotify. He hesitated over the keyboard for a moment, then tapped out a message. Danny, you awake? The typing dots blinked almost instantly before a reply lit up his screen. Tucker, does a Discord mod ever sleep? Danny snorted, thumb hovering, then shook his head. Instead of typing, he hit the call button. When Tucker picked up, Danny didn't bother with pleasantries. I hope that's a rhetorical question, he said, tone dry. Tucker's laugh crackled through the speaker. Man, if you're calling instead of texting, this has to be good. What's up? Don't tell me Bruce confiscated your phone for bad manners at dinner again. Danny snorted and rolled onto his back, staring at the ornate ceiling. Bruce was still too enamored with having more grandkids to be the disciplinarian. No, this is ghost work. Of course it is. Tucker's voice shifted into his tech manager tone, the one that always made Danny think of him as part friend, part quartermaster. Lay it on me. Danny explained, voice quieter now, as if the manor's walls had ears. I've been talking to the local ghosts here. Gotham's full of them, angry, lost, wandering. I can't stick around forever, but I can't leave them in limbo either. So I'm going to hire Johnny 13. There was a pause. The biker guy with the cursed shadow? That's the one. He knows the roads between realms. He can guide them into the infinite realms, and from there to whatever afterlife is waiting for them. It's better than them being stuck here. Tucker hummed, already catching on. And you need me because Johnny doesn't exactly own a phone, and I need to be able to contact him. Work phone. Something simple, but durable. Ghost-proof, of course. Then he rubbed his forehead. I will pay for it. Just get me something I can hand over when I see you next time. Tucker's grin was audible. Man, I'm particularly offended. You think I don't already have a stack of the latest model sitting on my desk? You want rugged, encrypted, and spooky safe? I got you! Relief softened Danny's shoulders. Thanks, Tuck. I knew you'd get it. Of course I get it. You're running an interdimensional relocation program out of Gotham now. That's like Ghostbusters meets Uber, but with motorcycles. You need logistics. Danny chuckled, tired but grateful. I will call it Phantom Rides later. Right now, I just need to sleep. Yeah. Get your beauty rest, King Spooky. I will have the phone ready by the time you swing back through Amity. Then he let the warmth of that promise sink in before whispering, Good night, Tuck. Night, man. Don't let the billionaires bite. Danny ended the call, setting the phone on the nightstand. The manor creaked around him like a sleeping beast as he turned off the light. And that was the chapter! If you liked it, leave a like. If you like my videos in general, feel free to subscribe. You know, I did not completely finish reading this story itself on my own. So, Just like a theory, what would be cool, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that will happen like this. It's just my theory what's probably gonna happen. It's like that the bats somehow getting confused by some random ass change into Gotham because all the ghosts are missing, you know? And I think ghosts kind of maybe have an impact on the world. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so that would be interesting. Like the bats are like, huh, something has changed. What the fuck is happening? And then they maybe call Constantine and he clears it up. But I don't know. Again, this is just speculations. I do Podfic commissions. Like, you can give me a story that I should read for you, and I can check that story, and and then we can agree on that. Prices and all that, like, on all the other information on how you can reach me are on the screen and in my channel description. This video is sponsored by Faith Hellman. Infos to her channel or so are in the video description. If you do commission me, you get early access to my Discord server where you have more accurate knowledge of what video comes out and can hear me read this, record this shit live. It is really strange how mature the clone Danny acts in this. Just a random thought while cutting. Like, how old is that Danny in the story? Is she like 1 year old, 2 year old? How old is she in here? Because most of the time, because she is a clone, she's pretty young. Younger than her, like, looks or something like that. So I'm like, why the fuck is she so mature, you know? It would make more sense if she's like a little shit or something. And I got for you recording highlights. Danny's low chuckle following whenever she scored. Yeah. Oh, this is terrible. I'm gonna try this again. Okay. In whatever game they'd invite, but Sam was refereeing. This is not a good. This is not good. Okay. I think it's refereeing, but I just want to be sure, okay?
Refereeing.
It is refereeing, okay. She didn't need to hear Tim or Jazz whispering in the cave for her to see the shape of it, to browse some of the more cultured, waving an oversized Wayne hoodie, Steph and I were thinking, paternity, if you to want to make, hello, hi, Miss Fenton, oh no, wait, I did that, hello, bureaucratic. I won't pretend I don't see the scene in this. Oh no. It sounds like we've got a plan. No. It just means you're getting more people in your a psychiatrist. No. Psychologist. I might have said the first one wrong. Psychologist. Maddie agreed to start prepping Jack and to frame the change as extra safety rather than removal. As Danny's and Sam's exchange smile on her vanity. Sorry. The spelling was like putting me off. I can't hold how you feel against Danny. And who knows when we will make things official. She brushed a bit, bunching around her knees. No. Yes. Bunching. Huh. Checking.
Eavesdrop.
No, that's the wrong fucking word.
Bunching.
And somehow rising because he had turned several younger ghosts or niche. I'm gonna drink a sip of water 1 minute, and then I'm gonna translate that word. What the heck is that word?
Niche.
So it is kind of niche. part quartermaster. Quartermaster. So it was like you're running an interdimensional relocation. Sorry. Enjoy the rest of your time, and see you next time.